Well, we all care about sustainability in our daily life, and we try to be very careful about what we consume. But one thing that we need to be aware of, that the international trade is becoming an increasing part of our economies. So for example, 1/3 of all economic activities that we undertake in respective countries is actually made for exporting. This is the reason why, if you're trying to fight global challenges like climate change, then you basically need to look into not just what you consume, but also what you produce. And this is the reason why international trade is increasingly important. The problem here is that different countries have different ideas about what is sustainable, what is a good practice, and what is a bad practice. And this dialogue is very much a big part of what sustainable trade is. Well, sustainable trade is probably the only way to go, because we are dealing with global challenges and for which we need to have global answers. We need to have a global answer. We need to also have a global dialogue. This is why the whole process around sustainable trade that involves many governments around the world is increasingly important. Another thing is that we forget very often that sustainability also concentrates many of the global problems we have currently with international trade. So for example, we tend to think electrical vehicles are very good things, but the batteries that go into them is produced in just a very few countries in Africa, which actually where the production of the battery is causing quite a lot of local environmental problems. Well, I'm very pleased to see that sustainability is increasingly becoming a competitiveness issue, meaning that companies, in order to better serve their customers, they are becoming sustainable. So it's not about rules, it's actually about incentives. So consumers don't just buy with their wallets, they also buy with their consciousness. So in one word, be open to your consumers. But also it's important to make sure that the supply chain and also their production methods are increasingly sustainable, because I guess the corporation wants to also become sustainable employers, and that's a very important part. And one final and perhaps one of the most important aspects that I would add to the private sector is perhaps to be open and speak to your government, and to make sure that you ask for openness in the international trading system, because trading system is very much designed by governments, not necessarily by corporations. Governments attend to the meetings around the trade agreements and the World Trade Organization and the UN. And that also means that the private sector must speak to other governments outside their own home countries in order to make sure that the trading system remain open and fair and non-discriminatory. And in this particular context, perhaps it's important to point out that unless you are very clear and open and talk to governments of other countries, it is very easy to demonize people from other regions like Asia.